Marauders for the Month by Lishiee. Chapter 16. The One That Goes Wrong. Do you think they'll be fine? Lily asked, running her fingers along a page in her potions textbook. Mary glanced up from her own textbook, smiling reassuringly at Lily. Of course they will, Lils. Marlene does shit like this too often for them to get caught. Lily nodded, still not feeling sure about it. Where would they keep the screech, snaps, and honking daffodils? How would they get them to the classrooms? They definitely should have done a lot more planning. Marlene had reassured Lily about 100 times this morning at breakfast that she and Pandora would be fine. However, Lily had a lingering feeling that something would go wrong. Who's to say it wouldn't be right now? Try to calm down, yeah? I can feel your nerves from all the way over here, Mary chuckled, scribbling on her parchment and kicking her legs. Both of them were doing the potions homework they were assigned this morning, waiting for the other two girls' eventual arrival with the plants. It was around the last few minutes of lunch that the door to the room was slammed open. Both girls jumped at the sound that echoed throughout the room. Marlene and Pandora both walked in, huge grins on their faces, with handfuls of plants. Marlene was panting and sweaty all over. Pandora looked amazing, as always. Lily had expected the plants to immediately start making noise, but it was strangely silent. The two girls trudged over to the far corner that had been designated for the plants earlier that morning. Lily and Mary watched as they carefully put the plants onto the ground, still no sound coming from the plants. Pandora glanced over at Lily and Mary and immediately smiled, having noticed the absolute confusion taking over their faces. We put silencing charms on them. We wouldn't have been able to get them here if we hadn't. Marlene grunted in agreement, lowering one of the large pots onto the ground. Pandora pulled the top back over the spot after all the plants had been deposited onto the floor. All right, everything in place then? Lily asked, glancing between everyone. The only part of the preparation she had to help with was cutting the vines. The rest was up to them, so she wasn't sure if they were all set. All set, Mary smiled, returning to her notes. Lily took a deep breath in. The lingering feeling hadn't faded, and she was nervous. Mary and Marlene had already lugged the large bag of vines out of the dorm room by the time Pandora arrived. Lily wasn't entirely sure how the girl got in. No one was left in the common room, and no one had told her the password. The mystery of Pandora Rosia. Light tapping at the door that Lily could only know as Pandora led her to opening the door. Instead of normal clothes or robes, Pandora was dressed in all black. Lily couldn't help the giggle that escaped her lips. Got them from Regulus, the girl beamed proudly, turning side to side to show off her outfit. Lily wrapped her fingers tightly around her wrist and tugged her in, quietly clicking the door shut. You know it's more suspicious if you're wearing all black, right? Lily smirked, walking over to the corner with Pandora in tow. How good are you at levitation charms? Lily asked, eyeing the large pile of flower pots. Spectacular. Pandora pulled her wand out and with the smallest flick of her wrist lifted the cloth, all the pots atop of it, off the floor and into the air. Lily felt her eyes widen slightly as she watched the girl effortlessly float it around the room, weaving it between bedposts. Perfect. Finding the first classroom was easy. They went to the bottom floor and picked a room they knew was used frequently. As they descended the stairs, Lily caught a glimpse of Mary and Marlene replicating the vines all over the hallway. They stretched and weaved over the walls and floors, creating clumps where seeing anything but vines was impossible. There were also small flowers sprinkled about, adding a pop of colour that was definitely needed in the sea of green. Pandora dropped the blanket onto the ground and immediately started grabbing a few pots and placing them on tables. The girls spoke the incantation, and 2 more popped up. Lily grabbed 2, and Pandora grabbed 2, both of them scouring the classroom for places to put them. Lily placed one of hers in a cabinet, and the other in a trash can. She had no idea where Pandora had placed hers, because the girl re-levitated the blanket as soon as she was done. They repeated the same steps in the rest of most of the used classrooms on the bottom floor. After the last room, they were working with ease, getting out of the classroom in about 3 minutes. In the last room on the 2nd floor, Pandora broke the silence. "So, how's your week been?" the girl asked, shuffling around in the drawer of one of the professor's desks. Lily glanced up, blowing her hair out of her face. "Mediocre, I suppose." Lily was slightly confused. Yes, they hadn't necessarily seen each other that much this week, not without other people being there, but Pandora had never made casual conversation like this. It was territory that had yet to be explored, if it could be called that. "How was yours?" Lily might as well continue the conversation. "Great," Pandora lightly smiled, pausing for a moment before going back to organising the papers and putting a plant in the drawer. No other response. Lily wasn't sure how to keep the conversation going. She'd never talked to Mary and Marlene like this. Not often, at least. After a few seconds of thought, Lily dropped her attempt to continue the conversation and went back to placing her plants. "You know you can't be doing this." Lily whipped her head to Pandora, eyes growing. "Marlene gave me a walkie-talkie," Pandora whispered, pulling said walkie-talkie out of her pocket and holding it out into the open. "Come on, James, why don't you just let us off, right?" "Shit," the 2 girls whispered at the same time. James had found Marlene and Mary. How exactly had they been caught, though? They had the fucking map. Unless they left it in the room. Lily swears she saw Marlene shove it into her pocket. Normally, Lily wouldn't be that worried. Marlene could easily charm James or get him to let her go. But he was with the 5th year. There was no way they split up. James would never leave the 5th year to wander the castle alone. Lily knows for a fact that James likes showing off his authority sometimes, so there is no way that James is going to let Marlene and Mary off. They're fucked. Lily walked over to Pandora and placed her hands on her hips. Pandora nodded her head suddenly and dropped her arm, walkie-talkie still in hand. "You know I can't do that, Miles." Lily just knows that James is running his hands through his hair right now. He does that all the time when he's unsure, and he is definitely unsure right now. "Come on, we've got to go see McGonagall." "Fuck," Lily whispered, rubbing her hands over her face. "Fuck," she repeated again, this time more urgent. Pandora looked up at her this time, fright over her face. "What?" "We have to get back to my dorm now," Lily urged, starting to collect their things. Pandora did the same, placing everything back on the blanket and levitating it. "What's wrong?" Pandora asked, picking up her pace to keep up with Lily, who was now speed-walking out of the classroom and into the halls, her head on a swivel. "If he's taking them to McGonagall, she's probably going to come get me, because it's not that late. If they go to find me in the dorm and I'm not there, I'm screwed," Lily said, trying to stop the anxiety from creeping into her voice. She had no idea how close they were to McGonagall's office, meaning they might not get there in time. "I'll take these to my dorm. You just get back to yours, okay?" Pandora said softly, walking in the opposite direction. "Okay, I'll check in with you tonight if I can," Lily sighed, running up the stairs. It only took her a minute to get to her dorm. She ran up the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time, and rushed into her dorm, changing her clothes. She hopped onto her bed and started to do the first assignment she could find, trying to calm her heart rate before McGonagall came to get her. A few minutes later, a knock at the door spiked her heart rate right back up. She got up and slowly shuffled over, trying to wipe the worry from her face. McGonagall greeted her politely and led her out of the common room and to her office. Walking into the office, James and the 5th year, Diana, were standing off to the side, and Mary and Marlene were sitting at the chairs right in front of McGonagall's desk. Lily took her place next to James, looking confused and surprised at the sight. McGonagall dismissed Diana and thanked her for her help. Now, Miss Evans, seeing as Miss McKinnon and Miss MacDonald are your doormates, did you know about this prank they were doing tonight? McGonagall steepled her fingers and fixed her gaze on Lily, just as Dumbledore had done many times. Both Mary and Marlene turned in their chairs to stare her down. It was not a glare of, you better tell her. It was a glare of, you better not say a fucking word. Lily had opened her mouth to admit to knowing, but immediately shuddered at the sight of the two girls staring her down. No, Professor, I was aware of no such thing. Lily put on her best smile. McGonagall stared at her for a few seconds, trying to examine her. Lily stood strong. It wasn't the first time a professor had tried to interrogate her. She had never done any pranks per se until this month. However, that doesn't mean she didn't do a little thing here and there that she wasn't supposed to. Alright then, moving on to punishment, McGonagall continued. Both girls turned back around and grimaced. They glanced at each other before focusing back on McGonagall. As everyone in this room should know, this weekend is Hogsmeade weekend. Instead of getting the privilege to visit Hogsmeade, you two ladies will spend tomorrow cleaning up your mess. Does that sound fair to you, Miss Evans and Mr. Potter? Both Lily and James nodded their heads as Marlene and Mary groaned. Both girls sunk back into their chairs, Mary rolling her eyes and twirling her hair, Marlene crossing her arms and scowling. Miss Evans, Mr. Potter, you are free to leave. You two, stay. McGonagall pointed at Mary and Marlene. With a curt nod, Lily saw herself out and quickly started to make her way back to the tower. Lily, wait! James called out, jogging to catch up with her. Well, shit. Yes, James? Lily sighed, attempting to pick up her speed and get him to leave her alone. It was no use, though. He was very fast. There's no way you didn't know what they were doing. Lily stopped in her tracks, fixing her face into a glare before she turned to look at him. She placed her hands on her hips and turned. What are you implying, James? That you're up to something, and I'm going to figure out what it is, he grinned. Lily rolled her eyes and waved him off, continuing her walk back to the tower. He let her walk ahead this time, giving her time to herself. As soon as she entered her dorm, she realized what he said. He was going to find out in due time. She had to tell the girls. That was fun. Is this a setup for Pandalily 8? Like, you know, we were gonna go to Hogsmeade all together, but then those two got detention. Anyway, could be entirely wrong, but it's a possibility. Okay, thanks for listening.